Today, Facebook's name change, a sudden ploy or a long-term strategy.
And what exactly is the metaverse? And can Facebook really control it?
It's a complicated story, but an important one.
I'm Steven Rosenbaum, and this week on Future Forward, can Facebook own the next internet?
I'm Alexis Granata. Let's launch.
Hey, Alexa.
Happy Halloween, Steve. Your favorite.
So I went and got my fangs for this year. And then after I brought them home, I realized that with a mask on, the fang's not so effective.
Right. Unless you just get a mask with fangs built in. But
yes, exactly. Oh, which is a good idea. So this Facebook, the metaverse was going to be a thing anyway. And so I thought for today's show, it would be good to at least start with kind of a primer on what this thing is, why it's, the Facebook story brings it front and center, but it's not the only reason to talk about it for sure. So should we just dive into this? So there's a good kind of overview that the New York Times has, which is titled, "Are We in the Metaverse Yet?" And there are two kind of like, for me, two checkpoints of when this word came up. The first was Neal Stephenson's Snow Crash, which was a great read and was kind of he coined the phrase metaverse, and then kind of refreshed in the book Ready Player One, which was theoretically a teen sci-fi novel, but I consumed like a fan, and then the movie.
I actually enjoyed the movie. I thought it was very entertaining.
I found it. I had the story in my head from the book. This is the book to movie story of the world, which is I liked the images I had of the characters in my head better than the ones on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
But should we just, like, for our listeners who are kind of coming to this new and are getting this word thrown at them a lot, should we just get everybody up to speed? Would that be like a good starting point?
Sure. So what's your take on the metaverse? What is it, and are we in it?
So the answer is no, we're not in it. And when it's fully built, it'll be, and people participate in it, it'll be something like a totally virtual world in which you can connect, meet, purchase, play, interact, and wearing different avatars. So I might have the Steve Rosenbaum serious techie guy avatar, and I might also have a entirely different persona, with a different name and a different face and a different, everything, body type, sexuality, whatever. There's already elements of that happening on the web, but not in a way that's fully immersive.
So is this concept of a metaverse, does it feel novel? Are we closer than we were compared to, say, Second Life? We're playing The Sims. Like, how do you distinguish the metaverse from other world building experiences?
Well, I don't play any of these games, so perhaps some of our listeners can chime in here, but certainly Roblox, Fortnite, Animal Crossing are all, immersive games and in worlds.
And you think that's kind of like the gateway into this becoming mainstream? There's a younger generation of, I don't know, digital first members of society who just love being in a virtual world.
I think you have to be careful to use the word gateway, because there's only one word that comes after gateway in common parlance, which is drug.
We're talking about Facebook, Steve. So of course it's going to be addictive, highly addictive.
Let's set Facebook off to the side for a moment. I'm prepared to want to believe that there are things about the metaverse that are in fact quite positive. And I think the question that's worth asking if you want to kind of get into a big picture question for a moment, and then we'll dive into details, is from the moment the internet was invented, were all the things we have now likely? When you connect the planet, when you connect people on the planet, when you build devices that connect people in real time, was Amazon inevitable? Was the fact that I can go on and order a part for, the back cover for my remote for my TV and have it delivered in 2 hours inevitable? Was the speed and connectivity of this connected world, like, with the and I'll put an asterisk next to that. I think Steve Jobs was not an inevitability, and he may have changed the planet more than anyone in world history.
So I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian, I guess. So in the pandemic, I feel like there are two groups of people who said, wow, I actually am an introvert and I don't need to be as social and out and about as I was before. And then there are people who definitively were like, I need to be with friends and family. I need to hug them. I need just that physical IRL experience. Do you feel like the metaverse is like a zero-sum experience where it's ubiquitous, everyone opts into it, and we all sort of accept a world where we put on some, I don't know, Oculus headsets or some cool glasses, and we just stay put and we're meeting like virtually in a conference room?
So many, I literally had 4 answers to that. So by I'm not an introvert and I need to hug people, I think you're referring to yourself. And with all appropriate respect to your relative youth and vitality, it might be generational. I went to a restaurant last night. We went out to dinner, and sitting next to me was a family and a little girl sitting at the table happily watching an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have found that appalling 5 years ago. And now I'm just like, parents are talking, she's in her, like, I think if you're born in a world in which you're given a phone when you're how old? What's the youngest? Well,
I see 2-year-olds with phones.
Yeah. Their own or their mommies?
No, they're borrowing, or it's like an old iPad that's just been repurposed and it's a crib device now.
A crib device. I guess what I'm saying is I don't think you and I know the answer to this question, but my guess is that each successive generation is more comfortable having meaningful relationships that are fully digital.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I met my husband on a dating app, and I'd say that was taboo 20 years ago. And it's very, very commonplace now. Oh, where'd you meet? Oh, we met online. We met on an app.
Ooh, here's a good story. People who meet online, date online, and marry online without ever meeting in real life.
I mean, we've seen it, right? I know people who have gotten married in World of Warcraft. Like did their wedding in World of Warcraft.
But I'm saying, could they have their entire relationship? Could they literally get married, legally married, and never meet in person?
It's so interesting because the pandemic definitely got us closer to that, like by leapfrogs, meaning by virtue of courtrooms being closed. I know at least 3 couples who got married on Zoom. So there was like the officiant wasn't in the room with them.
Wow.
And it was legal. So I don't see how, like, that sets a legal precedent where an officiant in World of Warcraft or Roblox or Fortnite could probably officiate.
So the answer to your original question is, I think we're already in Metaverse 1.0. And I think that most of it's gaming at this point. I would have thought that at some point in the mid moment of the pandemic, there would have been this massive sale of headgear and people would have started having meetings in digital spaces. I have to tell you, no one ever invited me to a virtual meeting. I never gathered one. I don't own headgear. I do own a bunch of those cardboard New York Times, put the cardboard box up to your head and look around, back when that was a thing. Headgear is expensive. The best one is probably Oculus Quest, and it's Facebook, and there's lots of Facebook negativity and pushback. So
they're changing the name though. It's going to be MetaQuest.
Really?
Yeah, maybe we spend 5 seconds. I know emphasis is not necessarily Facebook, but so this whole rebranding, one thing people should know is that it is analogous to what Google did a few years ago, where they introduced Alphabet as the corporate kind of holding company for the portfolio of all of the products. So Facebook as a product will continue to be called Facebook. However, there is a parent company now, and that is Meta. And so you have the stock ticker symbol going from FB, Facebook, to MVRS, Metaverse. And then Oculus is being sunset, and it's going to be MetaQuest.
So I have a bunch of thoughts about the name change. One is, if you've been involved with big companies as a vendor or a partner over the years, as I have, you know that even a logo change, let alone a name change, is a massive, long, complicated process with lots of participants and lots of vendors and lots of layers. And it doesn't happen. It's not like Zuckerberg rolled out of bed on Tuesday and said, I think we should change the name of the company. The minute he announced it, the website changed. The minute he announced it, the sign on the campus changed. Down to business cards and legal documents. And, it is, so it's a hugely complex decision that I presume was greenlit 7 or 8 months. Yeah, a year ago. And in fact, Zuckerberg said in an interview, he's been under pressure from employees within the company to do a name change going back 2 years.
And that probably makes sense as they started to acquire properties like WhatsApp or Instagram. Like, members of those teams might have always felt like second-class citizens, because Facebook as the parent company would then always undermine the significance of those secondary products.
Having said that, I would have, I think, been in a meeting, if I could have been in a fly on the wall in a meeting, say a month ago, I might have argued passionately that the sign that we were going to change, and the business card we were going to change, and the website we were going to change, and all of these things, now that they're all built and they're sitting there ready to have a button pushed, I might have argued to wait till the new year. To not have it, to have it look more strategic and less like a PR stunt.
Yeah, but there was probably no telling when they were going to kind of get out of the headline funk they were in.
No, I disagree. I think if you look back historically, these things are all cyclical. There's this, PR, you're in the barrel, you're in the barrel for a while, and then they beat on you for a while, and then Congress has hearings, and blah blah blah, and then the elections, the midterm, the elections happen, and either Virginia goes Democratic, or Republican. There's the January, other things take the spotlight off of you, or something terrible happens on YouTube, or Twitter releases people's personal PIN number, something like, you just tread water. I would have waited. I would have said, if Meta as a concept is a big idea, don't let it get lost in this PR strategy moment. That's me.
Okay, so you definitely think it is not a PR gimmick to distract. it is part of a long-term corporate strategy.
Uh,
But it just so happens to come off that way.
So I was on France 24 debating the name change for an hour this week, and I took a position that got me in a little bit of trouble, and I defended Zuckerberg. Kind of mostly just to kind of stir up the conversation, but then I got kind of dragged into it. And what I said is, let's be enough of an optimist for a moment to believe that he didn't go from being this, I'm going to change the world and make people more connected and make people be able to speak to each other across boundaries and borders and build a global community guy, to being this evil, I'm going to make money at any cost, money grubbing jerk. I mean, he's got plenty of money. He doesn't need to make any more money. If money was his goal, he could stop. He could literally set up a foundation and,
he already has the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative.
Right. So I'm just saying so I think if I get inside his head, and I've listened to him and read him for a really long time, going back to the earliest days, I think that Facebook is a I don't want to say failed experiment. When you take the world's population with its language differences and its religious differences and its political differences and its social differences, and you put them all in the same space, it's going to be super messy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a challenge, I think his interest is in solving that, or at least trying to. And in doing that, like the algorithm that says, you've heard me say this on the pod before, but like if I say I was at a concert last night and it was the bomb, which I would not say because I don't use that word in my vocabulary. How does an algorithm know that the word bomb, coming from Steve Rosenbaum after going to see XYZ band, is not a threat?
Right.
Like the number of inputs that algorithm needs in order to, did I just set the account up an hour ago? Am I a long-term user? Do I have a history of threatening language? It's like,
so
sentiment analysis is not an easy thing.
So are you saying that, okay, Mark Zuckerberg set out to build Facebook and with the promise of a more connected world being a good thing, and then inadvertently algorithms took over and it just got too complicated? Is the metaverse an extension of the original vision that when people come together, good things happen, and it takes out the complexity of real world constraints? Like, does the metaverse free Mark Zuckerberg of that global complexity that you just spoke of?
Yeah, no to all of that. I think the metaverse, I don't think he's creating the metaverse. I think technologists as a community agree that we're going in some version of that direction. And I think he'd rather get ahead of it and be part of the solution rather than a victim of it.
So in terms of Facebook's role in it, it's not the metaverse. It is a facilitator in creating the metaverse, an access point to the metaverse.
Well, they have one of these metaverse worlds called Horizon, which I've never looked at and I don't know anything about. All right, you're asking exactly the right question, which is there a metaverse or are there metaverses?
Right. It's like, there's the internet. Is the internet like the metaverse? And you have websites and platforms and experiences, or is the metaverse like all fragmented?
All right, I'll throw a wrench in the conversation. I think, and I'm willing to defend this, that the real strategic owner of the metaverse, the company with the most to gain and with the most strategic vision to be the connecting points of it is, drum roll,
Amazon. Ooh.
Apple.
Okay. Why do you say Apple?
I think headgear is uncomfortable. I don't think anyone wants to wear a helmet on their head all day. I think if you watch, going back to 2016, Apple glasses tech development is all about lightweight. There's a version that's kicking around of Apple glasses in which it actually projects images into your eyes, which is creepy, but in some ways less creepy than wearing a helmet. I think that the metaverse doesn't exist unless there's some kind of immersive experience. I think Apple's decision to be focused on privacy and not advertising and subscription revenue and all of these things, you might rather pay Apple $4.99 a month for their access point than pay Mark Zuckerberg nothing, but have him sell your most intimate personal thoughts and feelings to an advertiser. And that's the showdown. That's the showdown.
I mean, that's interesting. I believe that from a design standpoint, consumers trust Apple. Like if they were to roll out a VR product, that it would not only look better, but potentially be more intuitive than other products on the market. I think I would argue that like Amazon could do something really interesting, just because when I think about some of the use cases and the data layers they have and the infrastructure, there's some very practical jump off points. Meaning if I don't want to go to Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, or Costco on a busy weekend, right? I can go into Amazon's like metaverse portal and shop.
Yeah, I don't. So again, back to listeners who are still trying to get their heads around this word that appeared in their lexicon in the last month and a half, 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a one size fits all thing. And I think the reason why I say Apple, and I think you actually nailed it in terms of trust, is so I'm sitting here in front of an Apple computer. I'm wearing Apple AirPods. This is my new 13X iPhone. I have an iPad and a bunch of other Apple computers.
You just upgraded your Mac.
Yeah, and I've got a bunch of Apple desktop older machines for sale to get them out of the house. I'm already like, and the more they make those devices talk to each other and interact with each other and hand off experiences, the happier I am, because they've never done anything creepy. Well, little creepy things, but nothing massively creepy. I think that until there is a comfortable consumer-friendly device that's priced reasonably and that doesn't make me feel like I'm wearing a helmet, the metaverse is going to stop just short of, just short past Gamerland.
I think what's so interesting right now is you are seeing sort of like escapist tech, and I'll put the metaverse and all things world building in that, right? There's like a desire for people to want to have a blank canvas to create, to gather in spaces where their avatars don't necessarily represent their real self. And then we have this whole other, I don't know if it's two sides of the same coin or it's just a different trend that's actually an argument that the metaverse will never come to fruition, which is IoT, the Internet of Things, because more and more digital layers are being incorporated into the physical world.
See, whenever I see pictures like this of people wearing, what looks like milk containers on their face, I will. So here's the other thing about, before we just leave the Apple thing like it's the holy grail of the metaverse. Let me propose alternate scary elements. Apple's at war with Epic Games right now and a bunch of other gaming platforms. Apple is pretty controlling in what it lets into its worlds, and has a history of limiting which apps it lets into the App Store. for those of you who've watched any of the Apple TV Plus shows, they are expensive and glossy, and they just feel constrained. And there is a fairly active conversation among the Hollywood community about Apple's decision to come in and micromanage scripts and language and storylines. So the Zuckerberg metaverse and the Apple metaverse are two really different things.
Right.
And there's probably no going back depending on who gets the upper hand.
Yeah.
So to summarize, so I guess the other thing is, some people live in the country, some people live in the city, some people live in the woods, some people live in high-rise buildings. People will tell you that they love their city, their environment, their living space, their lack of car, their car. There's going to be room in this virtual world for lots of different environments, lots of different feelings, lots of different spaces. If you look at the Apple, their big events over the last 3 or 4, presentations of new product, where they start with, Tim Cook in this field with grass around. I mean, they're already gently moving toward. I don't think they're ever going to go back to an auditorium. I don't think you're ever going to see them go back to Moscone Center with 250 people in a room clapping. I think these digital environments, these digital spaces that they're building are to create, and they're if you watch them, they're kind of real. I mean, you see the building in the background. They're clearly in environments that have some relationship to the building, but they're not. They're virtual. I mean, they're almost all green screen.
Yeah, I just think there's going to be like a hybrid scenario, right? I think we talked about CES recently, right? Like there are going to be some people who will be like, I'm never walking the floors of CES again, but have an interest, in which case they'll put on a virtual world. But there are also some people I know who are itching to get back into, like, again, physical settings. Like there was just advertising week in New York, and there were a bunch of like work events that my team helped put together, and people really, really miss the happy hour or the spontaneous hallway conversation.
I think the thing that we can't know, but I'm willing to take a bet, is the people who miss it grew up with it and lost it. The people who never had it won't miss it. So, if you graduated college on the first day of the pandemic, and then went out and got your first job virtually, never got interviewed in person, and then started to go into the office one day a week, a day and a half, you don't miss, the team lunch because you never had one.
Yeah, I think my homework this week is to read a little bit on, say, like early childhood development, because I think I'm just here's the last thought I'll leave on this episode is, do we want to raise a generation of kids who are never socially acclimated to interacting physically with one another?
No, I mean, no, that would be terrible.
Wouldn't that be horrific? I think that's horrific.
So I worked from home on Friday, and I walked up to the 2 blocks up to Lenwich to get a sandwich. And I walked by this public school that had, I don't know, maybe 75 kids in the playground at the playground lunch. And I hadn't actually ever been by this school during the middle of the day. And the squealing that was coming off the playground was almost unlike anything I'd ever heard before. Partly because I think these kids have been, away from each other for a really long time, and partly because kids squeal and play. But yes, I don't believe that sitting in a chair, be great as a graphic, taking a really young child, taking a 2 or a 3-year-old child and putting an Oculus headset on them and putting it out in the world and saying, okay, is this where we're going? And does anyone feel okay with this picture? Because the answer would be no.
Right. And you just think about Wall-E. Remember Wall-E? The whole thing was like society was like overweight. People were just getting like pushed around because
Wall-E
they
was
also
bad.
weren't active.
How did Wall-E be? And by the way, we should use the clip for Wall-E. All right, we are out of time. This has been fascinating. Listeners, viewers, partners in this podcast journey, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what you think about the metaverse. Links to maybe other metaverse experiences that we didn't mention. We'll share them in the links. Until then, have a good week. Stay safe.
Happy Halloween.
Get candy. Bye.